Do you have no money and maybe no credit, and on top of that you're cold? Are you doomed to not being able to buy real estate? No, not at all. Just as you can walk inside to get out of the cold, there are things you can do to buy real estate despite having no money or no credit. Let me show you how. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching my content. I love creating content because I love teaching real estate, and even more, I love doing real estate deals. I love sharing how I do them. But one of the things that I find is best for getting the information across is to do a live event. One of the great advantages of a live event is you can ask me questions. So I prepared a live event coming up. To find out the details on it, click the link below. And then during this, not only will I give you the steps required to get started in commercial real estate, but I'll be taking questions and giving my best answers. Hope to see you soon. So the question becomes, how do you buy real estate with no money or no credit? And here's the reality of things, folks. Right now, home prices are up, as everyone knows. In fact, according to Zillow, the price of a typical home in the United States has increased by 23% from December 2019 to December 2021. In other words, what used to be a modest $238,000 home now costs $320,000. And in light of that, it would seem that it is more difficult than ever to buy real estate, especially if you have no money or no credit. In general, people have three main concerns, three reasons why they think it's difficult to buy a home without money or credit. As of December 2021, there are 6 million unemployed Americans actively searching for jobs. And the Federal Reserve reported that the median savings for the American family is only $5,300. Can you believe it? Only $5,300 saved. So Experian reports that 30% of American consumers have subprime credit scores. In other words, if you're unemployed and you don't have much money saved and you've got a bad credit score, it's going to be impossible to buy a home. And the truth is, there are ways around all of these things. So let's look at that first concern, the fact that you need to have a job in order to get a loan. Now, I'm the first to say that if you've got a job, it's probably going to be easier. However, if you're told you must have a job in order to get a loan, then you need to ask someone else. There are three different types of conventional lenders. Number one, banks and other lending institutions. Number two, mortgage brokers. And number three, mortgage bankers. They have programs for people without a job, so ask more people, check it out. Don't go to one bank and get turned down and say, well, see, I told you I couldn't get a loan. Go to 20, go to 30, find the one that will lend to you. The second concern is that you have to have some cash. Many people think, I must have 20% or more down in order to buy a property. Well, you think about it. Many people think that in order to do 100% financing, you must get a single loan for 100% of the purchase price. And when these people fail to get such a loan, they feel stuck. They feel validated in their belief that they can't get 100% financing. So when I say 100% financing, I don't mean you get one loan for 100% of the purchase price. You might get your first loan with, say, 80% financing. That's pretty normal. That's pretty easy to get. So now we've got 80% of the purchase price accounted for by the first mortgage. All we have to do is figure out how to borrow the remaining 20%. And there are many ways of doing that. One way is simply to ask the seller for seller finance. Sometimes it's called vendor financing. But get the seller to leave 20% in. Now, you might ask 10 sellers to do that, and 9 of them might say no, and that means you can't do those deals because you don't have any money. But if the 10th one says, yeah, I'd consider that, then you've got a deal. That's just one way of doing it. You might get a second mortgage for the 20%, or you might get a second mortgage for 15% and then get a third mortgage. And if that doesn't work, you might go to an uncle and say, hey, uncle, do you have 20% of this purchase price for me? And he'll say, why? Why would I do that? Maybe you have to offer them an incentive. Maybe you say, well, you can own 5% of this deal. Why 5% and not 20%? Well, you've already got most of the deal put together. Whatever it takes to negotiate it, even if you have to give him 20% of the deal, would you rather own 80% of a deal that you've got a mortgage on? You don't have any money, remember. Or would you rather own 100% of no deal? Clearly, the former is a better option for you. So when I say 100% financing, all I mean is that 100% of the purchase price has come from pockets other than your own because yours are empty. right? It doesn't mean you need to get a loan for 100%. So just be creative, figure out what else can I do? And if you don't have an uncle or an aunt or a cousin, a second cousin twice removed maybe, put an ad in the local paper or go online and say, I found this great deal. I just need someone to come up with the final 20 or 15%. You'll be surprised who might come out of the woodwork. So these methods we just discussed of getting 100% financing work obviously on residential property, but with commercial property, there's another avenue you can adopt to again get 100% financing. In other words, you can acquire a commercial property without having any money. And it's simply as follows. Let's say you've got a vacant commercial building or semi-vacant, and you can figure out a way of getting a tenant for that building. When it comes to commercial real estate, the value of that property is a multiple of its rental income. Technically, it's the rental income divided by the cap rate. So let's say that you find a building that's only got $100,000 of rental income, cap rate's at 10%, it's worth $1 million, it's on the market for $1 million. But it's semi-vacant, and before you acquire it, you figure out a way of doubling the rental income by leasing out that vacant space to a Gloria Bean coffee shop or a Starbucks coffee shop or something like that, and the rental goes from 100 to 200,000. The cap rate stayed the same, so the value of the building's now gone from $1 million to $2 million. You apply for a loan based on the fact that you've got a new tenant, and you get a 50% mortgage on $2 million. Well, guess what? 50% of $2 million is the $1 million purchase price. That's a way of getting 100% financing on a commercial real estate, a piece of commercial real estate, without you having any money and not necessarily having great credit. There are always ways around it. Just be creative, explore, talk with people, read books, join groups, find out how you can do it. I'm telling you, there are ways of acquiring real estate, even if you have bad credit and you don't really have much money. So the third objection most people have is they fear they have bad credit and therefore they could never get a loan. By the way, if you do have bad credit, isn't this a wake-up call for you to get good credit? It's so easy to get good credit. Make sure you pay off your credit cards on time. And if you can't pay them off on time, don't buy what you need. I bet you that most of you, whatever you put on your credit card 5 years ago, if you ask yourself now, do you really need that or did you really use it? The answer is probably no, you could have done without it. So anyway, it's a big wake-up call to improve your credit. But even if right now you have bad credit, there are so many things you can do. If you have less than perfect credit, you'll have to work a little bit harder in order to get a loan. And if it's absolutely impossible for you to get a loan with your current credit, well, then how about using the credit of someone else? Go to someone else and say, hey, I've got this great deal. It's got a fantastic return. It's cash flow positive, and the chances are it's going to go up in value. I just don't have good credit. If you're willing to go on the loan, if you're willing to apply for the loan with me, then we can use your credit, and I'll cut you in for X% of the deal. What should X be? I don't know, but I'm telling you, you getting a slice of this deal is better than getting everything of no deal. Right? So just work with people. And you don't even need to go to someone, you know, like we mentioned before, maybe an uncle or an aunt or a cousin or something like that. Think of the seller. The seller might be willing to leave money in. In fact, I'll give you a wacky story. But I once asked a seller whether he'd be willing to leave $500,000 in the deal. That's a bold question. And it was an elderly couple, and they said, well, would you mind if we thought it over overnight? And what am I going to say? No, you've got to decide now? Of course not. So I said, yes, of course. So I thought to myself, they're going to discuss it ad infinitum and come to the conclusion that they don't want to take the risk. We got together the next day and they said, well, we've thought about it. And instead of leaving in 500,000, would you consider us leaving in 800,000? And I'm telling you, these things happen. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You've got to go out there, be bold, try things. Why, by the way, did they want to leave in 800,000? What were they going to do with the sale proceeds? They were in their 80s. The bank's only given them 0.1 of 1%, and I was offering them 5% interest, and they wanted 5% interest on another 300,000. Now, will this happen every time? No. Will it happen the next time you ask someone to leave money in? Probably not. But don't be surprised. If you already tell yourself that it's not going to work, then for 100% certainty it won't work because you won't even ask. A no you've always got, a yes you might get. Be bold, be creative, and if you think this all sounds a bit tough, I'm telling you, it's easier to get good credit than to live with bad credit. So make sure you do the right thing. Start improving it. Start tightening up on what you spend money on. Make sure you pay your bills on time. Your credit will zoom high really quickly. It's not that difficult. And then this whole game will be even easier. But in the meantime, until your credit is up there, it is still possible to buy real estate even with less than perfect credit. So I've always said there are 101 things you can do to massively increase the value of your real estate without spending much money. And to be honest, one of the ones that isn't even in this book is how to get a property without having any money. Surely that's the ultimate way. If you can acquire real estate without having any money, and even if you have bad credit, that's the way of improving a property that you didn't yet own, because now you own it. But I always put my money where my mouth is, and I came up with this concept that can you spend a relatively small amount of money but have it result in the value of your property going up by an enormous amount? And the answer is yes. I think this is the longest title on Amazon.com. It's literally 101 ways to massively increase the value of your real estate without spending much money. And I'm telling you, you cannot read this book without coming up with ideas, or without thinking of ideas by reading this, that you can apply to your existing properties right now. It could be the home you're living in, just to increase its value so that you can borrow more against it. Maybe you increase the value of your existing home, borrow an extra 20%, and you use that as the 20% that you couldn't borrow on an investment property because the bank would only give you 80%. Well, you're getting 80% from the investment property and 20% from your own home. That's 100% financing. Remember, when we say 100% financing, I don't mean a single loan for 100% of the purchase price. I mean cumulatively, what you borrow against the property you're buying, and what you borrow against your own home, and against your uncle's home, and your second cousin thrice removed's home, and every other source of finance. If you can get 100%, you can buy that property. Click the link below to get your free copy of this book, so that you too can find out what you can do to massively increase the value of your real estate, so that you can borrow against it and buy even more property, even if you have no cash, even if you have bad credit. It is the way to go. I can't think of any other endeavor where you don't need the money to buy it. If you want to own $100,000 worth of gold, you need $100,000 cash. If you want $100,000 worth of options, you probably need to have the money to buy them. But when it comes to real estate, you don't need the money. Banks are willing to lend it to you. Financial institutions will lend it to you. Credit unions will lend it to you. Your uncle will lend it to you because they see the benefit to them. Click the link below to get your free copy of this book, so that you too can see how you can become financially free through investing in real estate. Once again, thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe. It makes all the difference for us. And if you enjoyed this one, if you got ideas on how you can actually buy real estate without having money or credit, you should check out my next video, because I've got more great ideas that are going to help you become financially free.